They were sipping champagne on a private balcony in the middle of the Caribbean while I was hooked up to monitors in an ICU ward, praying I'd make it through the night. I'd just survived a horrific car accident on my way home from work, and as I lay in that cold hospital room, my phone buzzed with alert after alert. Card charge approved, $14,200. First class upgrades, $3,800. Luxury spa package, $1,500. When I called my husband in a frantic panic, gasping for breath through an oxygen mask, he didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask if I was alive. He just sighed, background ocean waves crashing behind him, and said, "Don't start drama, Sarah. You're at work like always, so we decided to take the vacation you were too busy to give us." They thought I was their personal ATM, but they forgot one thing. I own the bank accounts, the house, and the company. My name is Sarah. At 32 years old, I was running my own digital marketing consultancy, working 70-hour weeks to support a lifestyle my husband, Mark, felt entitled to enjoy. For 3 years, Mark's ambition was purely theoretical, while his mother and sister were experts at spending money they never earned. They constantly guilt me for working too much, calling me distant, cold, and obsessed with money. The night of the accident, a sudden downpour turned the highway into slick black glass. Another car hydroplaned into my lane, and the last thing I remember was the blinding glare of headlights and the deafening crunch of metal. I woke up hours later in an ICU bed, hooked up to 4 drips and heart monitors, surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptic. I had 2 broken ribs and severe internal bruising, but when I reached for my phone on the bedside table, I didn't find frantic messages asking if I was okay. Instead, my screen was lit up like a Christmas tree with banking alerts. Card charge approved, $14,200. First class flight upgrades, $3,800. VIP luxury spa package, $1,500. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring through the pain medication. Someone had just spent nearly $20,000 on my primary credit card in less than an hour. The merchant name read Royal Caribbean Cruises. Attached to the confirmation email were 3 guest names: Mark, his mother, and his sister. While I was lying unconscious on an operating table fighting for my life, my family was boarding an ocean liner for a week of pure luxury. My throat was parched, and every breath felt like a knife pressing into my fractured ribs. With trembling fingers, I pressed Mark's number, praying there had been some bizarre, catastrophic misunderstanding. Maybe he had been hacked. Maybe this was a mistake. He answered on the 5th ring. But instead of the anxious, tearful voice of a worried husband, my ear was filled with the unmistakable sounds of a party: steel drums, clinking glasses, and the distant roar of ocean waves. "Mark." I managed to gasp out through the oxygen mask, my voice barely a rasp. "Where are you?" "I'm in the ICU. I had a terrible accident." There was a loud sigh on the other end, followed by the muffled sound of him walking away from the noise. "Don't start drama, Sarah," he said, his tone dripping with irritation. "I tried calling your office earlier, and your assistant said you were out. We all know what that means. You're always busy, or at work." My mom and sister were feeling completely neglected, so I decided we needed a family getaway. "Mark, I'm in the hospital," I cried, tears hot against my cheeks. "You charged almost $20,000 to my business line while I was being prepped for surgery." He snorted, entirely unfazed. "Oh, please. You make more than enough to cover it. You never take time off to spend with us anyway, so consider this your contribution to the family. Just get back to work, pay the bill, and stop trying to ruin our vacation." Click. He hung up. I pulled the phone away, staring at the blank screen as a cold, terrifying stillness settled inside me. The tears stopped instantly. The pain in my chest didn't disappear, but the fog of medicine and heartbreak cleared, replaced by an ice-cold realization. My husband didn't love me. I wasn't his partner. To Mark and his family, I was nothing more than an open bank account with a pulse. And it was time to close it for good. I didn't call him back. I didn't send an angry text. Instead, I took a deep breath, swallowed the sharp pain in my chest, and dialed David, my corporate attorney and longtime friend. Sarah? It's 8 in the morning. Is everything okay? David asked, instantly sensing something was wrong. I'm in the hospital, David. But I need you to listen to me very carefully, I said, my voice steady and deadly calm. Over the next 20 minutes, I laid out everything. Mark believed that because we were married, he had an open-ended right to my earnings. What he failed to realize was how meticulously I had structured my finances long before I ever met him. The credit card he had just swiped for $20,000 was a secondary card tied directly to my corporate account, an account registered solely under my business entity. Mark was merely an authorized user. And authorized user status, as David reminded me with a dark chuckle, can be revoked in a single click. David, freeze his card immediately. I instructed. Report the recent charges as unapproved personal misuse, revoke his user access, and close the credit line. Consider it done, David said. What about the house? The house is in my family trust, completely under my maiden name, I replied. I want you to draft emergency divorce papers today. Then, contact a lock service and a private security team. The moment I'm discharged, I want the locks changed, the security codes wiped, and every single piece of Mark's clothing packed into a storage unit. And the cruise? David asked. I smiled faintly against my oxygen mask. Let's just say their luxury vacation is about to become very uncomfortable. By day 3 of the cruise, the ship was gliding through the turquoise waters of the open ocean. Mark was feeling on top of the world. Eager to flex his apparent wealth in front of his mother and sister, he strolled into one of the ship's high-end duty-free boutiques, eyeing a sleek, luxury Swiss chronograph watch priced at $4,500. He strutted up to the counter, handed the cashier the platinum card, and flashed a smug smile at his sister. Put it on the card, please, he said casually. The cashier swiped the card. A sharp, red warning light flashed on the terminal screen. Declined. Account terminated. Mark's smile faltered. Try it again. There must be a system error. It's an unlimited corporate card. The cashier ran it a second time. Declined. Before Mark could start demanding to see a manager, 2 suit-clad members of the ship's financial administration approached him directly. Mr. Mark, the lead officer said firmly, his voice loud enough for neighboring shoppers to hear. We have a severe issue. Your primary payment method has been officially revoked by the account owner and reported for fraudulent misuse. As of 10 minutes ago, all onboard credit, your suite upgrades, specialty dining access, and internet packages have been canceled. Mark's face flushed a deep, humiliating crimson. What are you talking about? That's my wife's card. Well, sir, your wife has removed you as an authorized user, the officer replied coldly. Furthermore, you currently have a $4,200 balance accrued from room charges over the last 48 hours. Per maritime policy, until this balance is settled in full, your entire party is restricted to public areas and off-ship excursions are suspended. My phone didn't stop vibrating for the next 2 hours. Dozens of missed calls and frantic text messages flooded my screen, but I let every single one go straight to voicemail while I sat comfortably in the back seat of a black car, heading home. I had discharged myself from the hospital early, equipped with painkillers, a temporary chest brace, and a private home care nurse arranged by David. Finally, while settling into my living room, I decided to answer Mark's 30th call. Sarah, what the hell is going on? Mark screamed into the receiver, sounding utterly hysterical. The card is declined. They cut off our internet, kicked us out of the VIP lounge, and locked us out of our penthouse suite. They moved us to a tiny interior cabin on the bottom deck. Good afternoon to you too, Mark, I said, sipping my herbal tea with absolute serenity. Fix this right now, he bellowed. Mom is hyperventilating, and the ship's management is threatening to turn us over to port authorities in Nassau if we don't pay $4,000 in cash. I'm afraid I can't do that, I replied smoothly. You told me not to start drama because I was at work. Well, I worked with my lawyer. I revoked your card access, removed you from my corporate accounts, and filed for an immediate annulment of our marriage. There was a long, stunned silence, followed by the sound of his mother grabbing the phone, shrieking with hysterical rage. You ungrateful bitch. You're ruining our family trip. Mark is coming home right now to handle you. He's welcome to try, I said coldly. But the locks on the house have already been rekeyed, security guards are posted at the gate, and Mark's belongings are sitting in a storage unit down by the highway. Oh, and one more thing. The cruise line has hold of your passports until that balance is paid. Enjoy your stay in Nassau. Stranded in Nassau without my credit card, Mark had no choice but to drain his own pitiful savings account. When that wasn't enough to cover their $4,200 onboard debt, he had to take out a high-interest emergency loan online just to pay off the cruise line and get their passports back. The high-flying VIPs were forced to spend their remaining trip in a cramped, windowless lower-deck room, surviving on basic buffet food while stewing in utter humiliation. To top it all off, they couldn't even afford first-class return flights anymore. Mark, his mother, and his sister spent 12 miserable hours crammed into the back of a budget airline's economy section, thoroughly broken. When they finally landed back home, disheveled and exhausted, Mark marched straight toward our gated community, fully intending to scream his way through the front door. But he didn't even make it past the security gate. Standing outside the guardhouse was a process server accompanied by an off-duty police officer. Before Mark could even open his mouth, a thick manila envelope was slapped firmly into his chest. "Mark, you've been served," the officer stated clearly. Inside were temporary restraining orders, emergency eviction notices, and court summons for a divorce proceeding alongside a civil lawsuit for unauthorized financial fraud. In a frantic bid to save himself, Mark immediately hired a cheap family lawyer, claiming he was entitled to half of my digital marketing agency and 50% of our luxury home. But his lawyer's confidence crumbled the moment David presented the paperwork. My ironclad prenuptial agreement, paired with the fact that the house was held in a pre-existing family trust, meant Mark wasn't entitled to a single red cent. His dream of a free ride was officially over. 6 months later, the dust finally settled. The judge granted my divorce without hesitation, upholding our prenuptial agreement completely and ordering Mark to pay back every single penny of the $19,500 he fraudulently charged. Because he couldn't afford a high-powered legal team, his wages were officially garnished. Today, Mark lives in his mother's cramped, 2-bedroom apartment, working 60 hours a week as an entry-level sales representative just to cover his emergency loan debt and legal fees. His sister had to sell her designer handbags online, and his mother no longer brags to her neighbors about her wealthy daughter-in-law. As for me, I fully recovered from my injuries and took my business to new heights. I used the money Mark repaid to fund a trip of my own, a solo, luxury retreat to Switzerland, where I finally learned the peace that comes with setting boundaries. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to how much I could provide for ungrateful people, but how fiercely I could protect my own peace. So, I have to ask you, my viewers, if you woke up in a hospital bed to find your family living it up on your dime, would you have cut them off immediately like I did, or given them a second chance? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Thank you for watching.